Hello, I'm Caitlin Coombs with energeticcity.ca and welcome to Council Corner, powered by the City of Fort St. John. Today we are talking to Mayor Lilia Hansen to get the latest updates happening in the city. Mayor, how are you doing today?
Excellent, thanks for asking.
Wonderful. So, last week, members of City Council traveled to attend this year's North Central Local Government Association, or NCLGA, annual general meeting down in Prince Rupert. Before we discuss that, can you tell us a little bit about what the association is?
With pleasure. The North Central Local Government Association, it's a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. It focuses on advocacy, and it's specifically for in the North Central area of the province, all the way from 100 Mile House up to the Yukon, from Haida Gwaii all the way to the Alberta border.
Wonderful. So it's a nice big kind of range, and everyone kind of gets together during these events?
True. And I think it's really important that we get together to discuss timely issues. It also gives us an opportunity to bring forward resolutions, which we did at this AGM. And if we're successful with bringing them forward at that level, then it goes on to the Union of BC Municipalities, which they will continue to advocate at the provincial level.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons that it's important, but what does this event signify, and why is it kind of essential that everybody get together in this way?
It is very important to have a unified voice when we're talking to all levels of government. It also gives a stronger impact as to where focus can be. We try and find that commonality of things that are working well or things that we need to advocate to improve on. Also, when we get together, it's a learning opportunity, it's sharing of information, and it's building those relationships. But ultimately, it's definitely learning, advocating on timely issues, and speaking with a unified voice.
All right. And you mentioned recommendations a little earlier. A bit before the event, Council approved several recommendations to take to NCLGA. What were they, and why were they selected?
We had 7 resolutions that we brought forward, and they were on various topics, everything from healthcare to RCMP to timely resource permitting, electrification, having a strong strategy for LNG and for exporting. Those were some of the top highlights.
Okay. And how were they selected, and kind of why were they chosen to be the important topics that Fort St. John wanted to take to this big event?
When we bring resolutions forward to NCLGA, it definitely has to have a provincial scope to it. It can't be focused only in our area. So we meet with other elected officials in our region, and we talk about, what are the key issues we're hearing from the public. And I think that's really where our priorities have to be. What is important to the residents in the North? And we bring that forward then to NCLGA. And it gives us an opportunity when we meet in a smaller group prior to going to the Union of BC Municipalities, we're able to explain why we put this resolution forward, how it impacts them, why is it important to their residents as well. And at the same time, we're able to get feedback on how we can tighten it to make it more stronger so that we will see success when we go down to Union of BC Municipalities this September.
Okay, and I imagine with that wide geographical area that NCLGA covers, something might be brought forward by Fort St. John, but it applies to multiple communities, and it allows to kind of ties into that unified voice you were mentioning.
Correct.
Wonderful. And now that NCLGA is over, what is the next step for recommendations brought from Fort St. John? What do you do now ahead of the union?
Well, we definitely had fulsome conversations during the conference. Regrettably, we only made it through about half of the resolutions. 3 of our resolutions got passed on the floor. The balance will go forward to the Executive Committee for the North Central Local Government Association. And once passed there, it'll go forward then to the Union of BC Municipalities. And this is where we get more power for our punch there. Having a provincial advocacy group bring forward our resolutions and continue the conversations with provincial ministers.
Okay. And is there anything, before we wrap up here, anything you'd like to add about the convention or NCLGA or anything else that we haven't discussed?
Well, there's a few topics that I'd like to go back on if I could. When it comes to some of the resolutions, like one of our first ones that we got passed, and that was when it comes to trying to streamline the application process when it comes to out of province and international healthcare workers. That is an issue that we've heard loud and clear from our residents. They need to have access to doctors and to healthcare workers, and there is concern when we have diversions at our hospital. So that was one of my number one resolutions, and I'm glad it was on the floor early on. Other ones has to do with housing. We have a resolution we put forward regarding co-op housing, and we have to have the funding source that comes with it. You know, we ask our taxpayers so much money, and at the end of the day, there truly is just one taxpayers. But when we can have the assistance from the provincial government to have funding, you know, perhaps whether it comes from sales from cannabis or alcohol or lottery. There's different sources where we would like to have some of that assurance. How can we have these projects go forward? Because housing is needed on so many different levels. And then the third one that we got passed had to do with our RCMP reviewing when it comes to staffing, but also our invoicing. We need to have a transparent way when we do get invoices to make sure that we're, you know, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And a few others that I can summarize together. A few of the other resolutions, they had to do with timely permitting process. That is so important. It doesn't matter whether we're talking forestry or oil and gas, we need to have those permits issued in a timely manner so there's certainty for industry, for those investment dollars. As well, when it comes to electrification, for industrial electrification, that is something that we're going to need to meet the benchmarks when it comes to carbon caps. And then as well, when it comes to liquid LNG, and we need to have, what is our strategy for exporting? We could be a global leader. I mean, we're already showing strong leadership, what we're able to do, producing some of the cleanest natural resource products, including LNG. But we need to make sure that we have that provincial strategy in place. How are we going to get it out to the other parts of the world? While I do agree we're doing an excellent job with reducing our emissions, but we have to have more of a global mindset on it. I think that's really important that we continue to hit that home. And a few other issues that I'd like to touch on. A big shout out to one of my fellow council mates. Tony Zabinski was elected first vice president.
Wonderful.
At the North Central Local Government Association. So that was fantastic. But I'd also like to give a huge applause to the City of Fort St. John staff. We won a regional award for leadership, for community leadership. And that had to do with our recent health and wellness conference. And I have to give a lot of applause and kudos to all of those that were involved in that project. I get to go down there and accept the award, but truly it's the staff that's working behind the scenes. And what I especially loved about this conference was to see how it's growing, how the content is related to what we're hearing and seeing is needed, but it was opened up to the community. So it wasn't just for city staff. We had different organizations attend, we had First Nations attend. It was a really good, diverse group, and I'm really impressed with what they were doing, and I'm excited to see where it goes next year.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mayor Hansen.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. That was Council Corner, powered by the City of Fort St. John. I'm Caitlin Coombs with energeticcity.ca. We will see you next time.